Hi, Miss Gordon. So we're going to be talking about our eco-column lab and the certain data we got from it. So I graphed, these are my two graphs. I graphed right here soil fertility number throughout the 13 days. As you could see through this correlation line right here, that there isn't a very strong correlation between the number of days and the soil fertility number. And because the number fluctuated between the days between 4 and 2, there isn't a very big connection between the number of days and fertility number. 4 was our highest fertility number and 2 is our lowest. Then on this graph right here, I graphed the pH level of the soil throughout the 13 days. And it fluctuated definitely near the end right here, but it remained pretty constant the first couple days until day 6. And our pH level, the highest it was at 7.3, and the lowest it was at 7, which means that it stayed pretty constant throughout the entire time.
Hi! Alright, so these were my graphs. I did the height of the grass and the lima bean plant, which were our two tallest plants out of this experiment. So as you see in the first one, this is the growth and the height of the grass. So it was a steady increase throughout the entire time, but it kind of plateaued on like day 7 at like 20-21. The highest it got was 21, but then it went back down to 20, which I think was a measurement error, but you know. So yeah, so with the environment we created, the grass was able to grow. And then same thing kind of happened with the lima bean plant. Around day 8 and 9, it kind of like plateaued. The highest it got was around like 47. So yeah, but that was our highest growing plant. And in the beginning, it didn't grow that much. But then, as you can see from this exponential increase, it grew really fast. So yeah, these are our two tallest plants.
Hi, so this is the graph for soil fertility level in centimeters. So basically the soil fertility level stayed pretty constant throughout the 13-day variation. The highest it went up to was 17 centimeters and the lowest was 13. So that was a range of about 4 centimeters. Yeah, and throughout the course it actually stayed pretty constant. And then for the soil temperature in Celsius, it didn't stay as constant, but it had a dip down to 65 degrees on the 8th day, but then it ended up going up and then leveling out. So yeah, throughout the duration of the 13 days, the soil temperature stayed fairly constant, except for that dip on the 8th day.
Hi, so I did the allodium length and the water pH measurements, and in the allodium length it started a little bit low and it increased throughout day 11 and it decreased on day 12 and 14th due to probably like the fish who probably ate some part of the allodia, which made it decrease, and it's measured in centimeters. And for the water pH measurements, it started low, which meant it was more acidic, and it rose high on the 8th, the 10th, and the 12th day, and it led to maybe more minerals, and it eventually decreased on the 12th and 14th, on the 13th day because of more acidity.
Okay, so now we're going to be talking about the overall plant height throughout our eco-column lab. So all 3 out of the 5 plants that we had did grow. It was the lima bean, the grass, and the soybean. The lima bean grew the most. It was the tallest, then the grass, and then the soybean grew a little bit, but then it died near the end. And so and the other 2 plants didn't grow at all, even from the beginning, so there's no growth from them whatsoever. The lima bean was the tallest, and it grew to around 47 centimeters. The grass grew around like 20 centimeters, something like that.
Yeah, and then something that we should have done different in our eco column is in the beginning we put too much water through our eco column, so it flushed out some of the nutrients, which brought down our soil fertility and our growing levels. In addition, we also didn't make the holes in our eco column big enough because not enough water was getting into our soil, which meant like some of our plants were dying or they weren't growing as much as we thought they would.
Yeah.
In addition, that means like the fish weren't getting the nutrients and the Elodia wasn't growing as much as we had hoped.
And that also plays into why our fertility numbers were so low, because in the beginning the soil was like really good, but it didn't have enough water to like stay at a good fertility level, and that's kind of deteriorated like our whole
Yeah, and
experiment,
that
especially
affected
with
the plant
plants.
growth of the other two, and that's why we think because it was unequal water distribution and it did wash out extra nutrients, that the other two didn't grow at all.
And for the water pH graph, it was really acidic because of the plants not receiving enough nutrients and minerals. So when we created the aquatic chamber on day 7, it started out at 6.2, which meant it was really acidic.
And as nitrite and nitrate levels kind of altered and changed throughout the lab, the oxygen level within the aquatic chamber altered as well, and that causes changes in the pH level.
Yeah, the water pH very much went up and down throughout the experiment.
And some adjustments that we think we would make throughout the lab would be to have less drainage, as we talked about.
And then also like making sure that our holes were the same size all around, to make sure that all the plants are growing at the same rate, or at least getting the same amount of water each day.
Some mistakes that we had were not a constant rotation of our plants. Like some of the plants got caught up on the nets, and some sunlight distribution also we need to work on.
And as well as like the water not being distributed equally, I think played a role in some of the plant growth, because we didn't have big enough holes for some of the areas. And then a couple questions that we had were,
what does this sand chamber, like how does the sand chamber affect all of this? Because we felt like most of the activity within our eco column mainly came from the terrestrial and aquatic chamber. So we were wondering like how, like if there were enough nutrients in the sand chamber, considering our worms were in the terrestrial chamber and the fish were in the aquatic chamber.
And then what major effect did adding the organisms like the worm and the pill bug
yeah.
have on the plant growth? Because like I've heard before, and I know we've all heard before, that worms and pill bugs really help plants grow, but we were just wondering in what way.
Because after we added it, the soybean in the middle kind of started not growing anymore, so it was kind of a questionable thing.
And we were wondering if like the pill bugs and like the worms were getting enough nutrients, considering the some pill bugs didn't grow, but then some of the worms did grow. So we were wondering if it was something on our part not watering the plant enough or getting enough nutrients into it. Yeah.
And also, I was asking a question about how on some days, why was the water pH significantly high rather than others? Because after day 8, it dropped really low to 7. They went down 7, and on day 11, it went down by 7 as well. But we didn't know like what effect it had on the water pH.
Yeah. And the last question that we had was the effect of sunlight and like rotating the plants, having equal sunlight for each of them, because while they're in the eco columns near the window, certain plants received more sunlight than the other, I think, and because our lima bean plant was so tall, it could have blocked sunlight for other plants, so how like that would majorly affect the growth and nutrient.
Also, we were probably wondering why 2 of our plants didn't grow. I don't know if it was on our part as far as the holes, but like our seeds sometimes like not growable. Like, are there a few seeds in each pack that like don't grow? Like, you know, like did an outside influence or was it our own?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Miss
you.
Gordon.
Have a blessed day.